Hello, I'm Carol Thorbes. For the last 10 years, you've known me as an information officer in SFU's Public Affairs and Media Relations Department. I've applied my skills in news release writing, media pitching, and marketing communications to building SFU's profile locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. My success speaks for itself. I'd love the opportunity now to apply my strengths and experience in relationship building and strategic marketing to advancing SFU's alumni relations. I realize as the Director of Alumni Relations, my ability to present and promote SFU publicly is important. For that reason, I've put together this tape to show you my public presentation skills.
About 300 people filled the atrium of the new Arts and Social Sciences complex on opening day. They basked in the light of a cathedral-like skylight. The visually stunning public space can be reconfigured to host special events and serve as a student lounge. This airy space is just one of many showpieces in one of the world's most collaborative and innovative research centers. State-of-the-art labs in the Center for Forensic Research unite various disciplines to develop new techniques for identifying victims and perpetrators of murder.
This came from Stanley Park a couple of weeks ago.
Forensic anthropologist Mark Skinner and molecular archaeologist Donya Yang are collaborating on extracting DNA from degraded skeletal remains.
This is a child's skull. It was found many, many years ago, never identified, and sat on a museum shelf until it was given to Professor Yang, and he's successfully recovered this child's own DNA.
Equipped with $5 million worth of computing power and software from IBM, a highly secure lab in the Institute for Canadian Urban Studies is only accessible to people with top security clearance. It houses years' worth of crime data.
That there's no comparable university facility anywhere else in the world.
The Institute is taking crime pattern analysis to new levels internationally. Inventions such as this virtual environment replicate crime-ridden inner cities.
Part of a doctoral thesis being done by a graduate student to build a virtual environment and then use it to test criminological theory by letting people, in effect, play a game.
Highly sophisticated computing capabilities and increased lab space will help the School of Criminology advance research on social justice, aggression, and cybercrime. Researchers gave visitors and the media a guided tour of the archaeology department's expanded, light-infused storage facilities. They house one of the world's largest and oldest collections of prehistoric specimens.
Most of my colleagues work in buildings where there's very little natural light and not a great deal of research space, and here we're lucky in having wonderful light to work with, which is actually very important when you're working with prehistoric specimens.
Sit behind a screen observing what's going on and talking to...
Researchers at the new Center for Clinical Psychology also hosted tours. They explained how acoustically private therapy rooms, video and audio recording capabilities, and one-way observation glass panels will improve assessment and treatment services for people seeking psychological counseling. The atrium adjoins the first classroom dedicated to interdisciplinary teaching and research in First Nations studies at SFU. The university plans to create a gallery here that will celebrate Aboriginal heritage.
They started with the needs of the researchers and the teachers and designed the building around that. And that is so different and so exciting.
I was totally awestruck by when I first came here with the lighting and just the facility itself. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
The level of knowledge and research that's going on now in there is fascinating and astounding to know that that's going on here.
Since its birth on September 9, 1965, Simon Fraser University has stood out as an architectural jewel atop Burnaby Mountain. SFU's architects Arthur Erickson and Jeffrey Massey pioneered a building design that so well married aesthetic and academic vision with environmental sensitivity, it made SFU the talk of the world. Just over 40 years later, on September 19, 2007, a new 7,529 square meter building at SFU Burnaby, known as the Arts and Social Sciences Complex 1, or ASK 1, opened to enthusiastic applause. The new building's designers, Busby, Perkins, and Will Architects, have really pushed the envelope on the original architect's achievements. The natural lighting, the repeat patterns of wood, glass, and concrete, and the floor-to-ceiling windows are reminiscent of the architectural beauty in Arthur Erickson's original design of SFU. But as in Erickson's creation, the architectural beauty in Ask 1 is more than skin deep. Many features are as environmentally sensitive and energy efficient as they are beautiful. They advance Erickson's efforts to harness the rain and the sun.
All of the four sides of the buildings are quite finely tuned in terms of what's required to manage the heat and manage the sun, but still have as much glass and openness to the outside and daylight as we could.
Vertical glass shades employ frit, a ceramic material that cuts sunlight to minimize heat on the more heavily sun-exposed east and west sides of the building. Exposed concrete ceilings in the perimeter rooms create a thermal mass to store heat. Horizontal eyebrows shade the building on its south elevations.
Generally what we want to try and do is control the solar gain on the exterior of the building as opposed to letting it come in and then trying to combat it with blinds and things, because once the heat is inside the building, then it takes a lot of work, usually mechanical systems, to get rid of that heat.
A green roof seeded with succulents that change color with the seasons helps to clean the air and retain heat in the winter. The roof also absorbs the area's copious rainwater, raising the bar on Erickson's use of this environmentally sensitive feature. For the first time, SFU is combining green roofing with underground water storage to irrigate plants and replenish evaporating pond water.
It's especially relevant here because Burnaby Mountain has a big issue with storm water runoff. One of the primary uses of the green roof is to retain the water so that we don't get the runoff going down the mountain.
Inside, several features improve sound and air quality and energy efficiency.
We're sitting right now in the 350-seat lecture hall, and this is a good example of types of materials that are used throughout the building. The wood is grown in a way that's approved for proper growth and forestation practices. In the theater here we have what's called displacement ventilation, and that's a way of ventilating which is a lot more energy efficient than the typical forced air. And it's below the seats. Throughout this building where we have large areas of assembly or things that generate a lot of heat, there's a system in place called the heat recovery system, and the air that is warm gets recovered through coils and used back into the system as opposed to heating up fresh air from scratch.
The really significant design evolution in this building is the way it's modulated its exterior elevations. We really wanted to push both the continuance of Arthur Erickson's original design ideas and in a way that really promoted sustainability and green initiatives.
Ask One's design meets high North American standards for energy conservation. They cut consumption to about 40% of what conventional buildings consume in Canada.
There are thousands of people at today's open house at Simon Fraser University. In 2006, when we had our last open house showcasing all three campuses, the event drew at least 12,000 people.
I'm originally from Japan. I'm an international student in SFU. This is one of the exploration courses in 300 level. It's called Voicing the Mosaic. These installations represent mosaic in Canada, like multiculturalism. For me, the reason I choose SFU is it's more much smaller, but it's more connected with other people.
We're showcasing a new Faculty of Health Sciences, which is typical of the great interdisciplinary programs that have been pioneered at this university. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to get together with the whole community.
We got really excited, and I know for sure that I was excited when I got to the open house in SFU.
To a university because they are the absolute best benchmark of how well we are doing as a university.
The university doesn't end when you get your diploma and you go on. It's a community that must continue for years afterwards, and it helps you build a network. It helps you build a group of people who you can trust in their abilities from the beginning because you know that you've got that certification.
Well, there is no other program like it in North America that we're aware of, that you have all of these different facilities that work so closely together.
We're providing a window onto new and multidisciplinary research programs and discoveries that are benefiting the world.
I'm a third-year student at SFU. I'm majoring in archaeology and focusing in physical anthropology. I think archaeology is important because we study past cultures and it's interesting.
Maggot painting. It's really interesting. You dip the maggot in paint and you put it on paper and it crawls around and it makes an interesting image.
Does it make you want to be in CSI or become a scientist?
Yeah, really, seriously.
You're going to come to SFU?
Yeah.
Statistics show 2/3 of email correspondence is made up of personal comments or inappropriate comments.
So, Carol, the moral of the story, therefore, make sure it's deleted from your backup file as well?
Actually, Gloria, it's not that simple, because if you work for a government agency like a hospital, a school, Crown Corporation, then you are required under the Information Act to keep that email as a matter of record. So the moral of the story is, if you don't want it seen, don't put it down.
Thanks very much, Carol.
You're welcome.
Reporter Carol Thorbes is with us now, live from the conference. Hi, Carol.
Hi there. These new drugs, Erica, are called protease inhibitors, and researchers believe they have the potential to turn AIDS into a long-term manageable disease. But some people with HIV, people already benefiting from the drugs, are wondering how long that'll last. It's a fishing enthusiast's dream come true out here in the Alberni Valley. Dozens of sockeye, but there's hardly anybody out here catching them. I'm Carol Thorbes, and I'll tell you why later on the CBC Evening News.
Please dial your card number and PIN or 0 for an operator now.
These are the tools of their trade. These lines are their ticket to anywhere in the world. Thanks to new technology, the long-distance market is a major moneymaker for telephone fraud artists.
We're estimating somewhere in the area of $2.5 to $3 million in BC this year, probably in excess of $400 million Canada-wide.
It seems to me that that was an awfully early release date, especially without the follow-up care at home.
Donner is upset a nurse from the North Shore Health Unit visited Donna only once the day she died. He's also concerned she may not have reported an elevated blood pressure reading to Donna's doctor.
The North Shore Health Board won't comment on Donna Fish's home care because it is under investigation by the board. The medical health officer won't only be looking at the nurse's delivery of health care and communication with Donna's doctor, he'll also be looking at the nurse's caseload.
The good people at Air Care tried to cheer me up by telling me at least they weren't forcing me to meet what would be considered a good reading for my car.
A good reading, which we're now supplying to all the vehicle owners, which represents the level at
25% of the best 25% of the fleet can do is 47, and that is the kind of number that your car should be able to do.
But all I could think about was if I'd brought my car in yesterday, I would have passed under the old standards.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't think Betsy was going to let me down, but she did. But at least I'm not alone. Something like 14% of the vehicles that have come through here today have failed. That's 3% more than last year. And Air Care says it expects 17% of older vehicles to fail on a regular basis. So a trip to your mechanic before you come here might be a good idea. Carol Thorbes, CBC News, Burnaby.
Long's venture on the net opens the door to the diagnostic world of doctors. A guidebook of treatments for severe depression, complete with a list of antidepressants and their recommended dosages, is at our fingertips. Anyone with a computer can print off their diagnosis along with suggested treatments and take it all to a doctor.
Many physicians may not have had that much education, that much interest in psychiatry, and so they forget the rules for diagnosis, they may forget the rules for treatment, but we can remind them.
Aren't you worried about widespread abuse or misuse of this information if people can access it from the internet?
Well, I'm thinking of the 15% of the people with this illness that die because they never got medical treatment for this illness. So I'd rather overtreat, if indeed that's happening, a small minority of people so that the others don't die.
In between taking care of his children and telling people his wife is gone, Donner is asking himself the same question over and over again. Would his wife Donna still be alive if she hadn't been released from hospital 5 days after 2 open-heart operations? Donna's first operation on January 11th was to repair a torn heart valve. Complications led to a second operation within hours, but the family says hospital officials declared it a success.
They'd originally said she couldn't come home till Sunday, but they decided she'd come home Friday because they were all in a panic to find beds. And she wanted to come home.
How did you come to understand, where did that come from, that they were in a panic to find beds?
Donna told me, actually.
Good evening. Canadian officials are negotiating a deal that will allow the Americans to fish thousands of Fraser River sockeye. That despite the fact that Canadian commercial fishermen are not allowed to dip their nets in the Fraser. Only natives are. Something that Reform MP John Cummins is now fighting in court. Melissa Fung reports. Well, I don't know, hockey in August, Eric, but it was big at GM Place tonight.
Sure was. 16,000 folks were there.
Thanks, Eric. And if you're wondering when the sun will be back, stay tuned. Phil has your weather forecast. And the mayor of Delta is raving mad over a weekend raid party that Surrey RCMP had to handle. As you said, that's our show for tonight. But
Except for one thing.
Yes, one thing. Just in case you didn't get a chance to catch the opening ceremonies for the spectacular Olympics, here's a look at some of the highlights, and have a great weekend.
Brothers and sisters, it's an addiction for which there is no cure. Jim Burns and friends have got a bad old case of the blues. Don't miss this 1-hour music special, Why Not Get Hooked on the Blues, on CBC Television.
Franz Schubert, from Vienna to Vancouver, great cities are celebrating the 200th birthday of one of the world's best composers. Don't miss this choir concert, Schubert and the CBC Vancouver Orchestra. Call for your tickets today. The Criminal Mind, chilling, candid, the roots of criminal behavior, a horrific journey into the mind of the offender. Don't miss The Criminal Mind on CBC Television. It's a Christmas classic, a West Coast choral Christmas, a holiday to remember, with the Amadeus Children's Choir, the BC Boys Choir, and the Vancouver Cantata Singers. Come celebrate with us, a West Coast choral Christmas on CBC.